this was back before stations used to be 24 hours. And so I would get up and the station identification would be on the screen. And the first thing they would run would be Starblazers. So I'd be up before the show started, get my cereal and whatnot, and watch the station identification.
We've been talking about some real technical stuff last couple segments, and it's been very informative, and I want to thank DC for that. But we thought we would go a little retro in the last segment, do something a little bit silly and fun. And DC, you are, I'm just going to say you're an aficionado of, like, 80s and 90s cartoons.
Yeah.
You can dispute that if you would like.
Oh, no.
Oh, okay. Like, real quick, like, top 5. I need to know, like, top 5. What are the best cartoons from the 80s and 90s? Hot take.
Can we also add in, like, the early, like, 2000s to 2010?
Yeah.
What are you trying to get into the top 5?
I'm just saying I don't have a memory of time spans because of ADHD issues, Nathan.
Oh, okay. Anyway, the time frame when you would watch cartoons.
So up until current day, I assume.
Yeah.
When you would watch cartoons and you had a little box of cereal... No, that's also current day, isn't it? I'm trying to think how to... Like, for me, I think about, like, cartoons and television shows that I watch after school. Like, I think about, like, Power Rangers and Mystic Knights and Tir na Nog and Beast Wars. Yeah, absolutely. I'd think about those sort of things. And then occasionally ones that I watch on, like, Saturday morning cartoons for a while. But, like, for you, what were the memories that you like from that era of cartoons?
Oh, boy. Well, let's cover the big ones. Batman the Animated Series, Justice League.
Good one. Also a good one.
And then the one I would get up because it aired at 6:30 a.m. on Saturdays on a local station was Starblazers, or Space Battleship Yamato, as you may know it. So I would get real early just to watch that show.
Just to watch
Amazing. Just to watch that, yep. This was back before stations used to be 24 hours. And so I would get up and the station identification would be on the screen. And the first thing they would run would be Starblazers. So I'd be up before the show started, get my cereal and whatnot, and watch the station identification thing with the weird voice from nowhere that was creepily talking to me and telling about all their stats. And then it would break into Starblazers.
Nice. What was Starblazers? Because I don't know that one.
They were... The Earth had been decimated by aliens basically throwing meteors at it, so humanity moved underground, and eventually they heard from a distant star that said, we can help you, but you have to get here to get this thing. And so they raised a battleship. There was an actual World War II battleship called the Yamato, and so they used that. They outfitted it for space engine, so they used a bit of history to, make their fiction.
Yeah.
And they rise it up out of the Earth, surprising everyone because this was a top secret project. And it's about the first season is about their year-long travel. Well, they have a year to get back before the Earth is just done and humanity is gone.
God.
So they have this ship with a special drive in it, and they have to try to get, to another part of the universe and back before that year is up. Otherwise, those meteors keep hitting. It's going to affect the people underground, and the humanity on Earth just won't live anymore.
Oh,
It sounds very anime, especially since it's
it's anime.
Yamato.
Yeah.
Because that was a Japanese battleship. It was the biggest one I think they ever made.
Yeah, Space Battleship Yamato was a Japanese series, obviously, beforehand, and then it was rebranded as Starblazers. In
the U.S., yeah.
Yep, in the U.S., yeah.
Mm-hmm. That is a tendency of happening. Quite a bit.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Kind of. I think it happened more before Japanese cartoons and anime was, big over here, though. Because after it started getting bigger, they stopped rebranding stuff as much as they just kind of went, hey, here's an English port. Or here's subtitles. Good luck.
Yeah, enjoy the subtitles. You'll enjoy
Subtitles
it.
are fine.
Yeah.
Sometimes I can't
I have
keep
to
up with
read.
subtitles. Yeah, I can't read and watch a thing at the same time. It doesn't work.
Reading is hard.
No, it's ADHD means I cannot focus on the two things at once.
Yeah, that's a common problem I have too, actually. Is I want to watch things, but I'm also reading at the same time. I'm mostly thinking of like with Power Rangers, where they reused so many of the scenes from the original
Oh,
Japanese,
yeah.
but then they put in the American actors when they for the storyline parts to mesh it in together, so they could reuse most of the footage and re-air it as Power Rangers. There's my childhood memory: coming home from school and watching Power Rangers, and then whatever other Power Rangers clone would inevitably come after it for whatever they could come up. And the one that stuck with me was the Mystic Knights of Tir na Nog.
You and that one, you've mentioned that several times in the show before.
I know. It was good, though.
I think what stuck with me was Beast Wars when I was younger. And that and
I
Justice
love
League I
Beast
definitely watched a lot. I have vague memories of Batman the Animated Series. Like, I watched it, but, like, my memory sucks.
Right.
The original Teen Titans,
Sure.
always a really good one.
Yeah. I remember Sonic the Animated Series.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah. He loved his chili dogs. So much. All the time. Anyway, yeah, so that was my experience. I think most of what I saw was like the live action stuff. I didn't see as many of the cartoons.
Here's a question on that same note, but on a different side of that note. Since we're talking about retro stuff, as it were, DC, did you game much back then in ye olden times?
Oh yeah, I had I had an Atari 2600,
I had an NES.
and then eventually I had an S. Yeah.
I had a friend who had the Atari 2600, and we would go over there because I was like, "Oh, video game console." And then I had an NES, and I was like, "Now I'm the cool one."
Yeah, we had
This
an
is like a
NES.
new thing.
We had an NES because I've got two older sisters,
Yeah.
and so it wasn't mine, but it was. We had one because whatever. So I remember playing like Duck Hunt and the Super Mario, and then Super Mario 2, or as they call it in Japan, Doki Doki Panic.
Right.
And then Super Mario Bros. 3 was when I played insane amounts of, I think.
Oh,
Also,
okay.
the Who Framed Roger Rabbit NES game.
I was over at your house when we were playing the Who Framed Roger Rabbit game. I remember
Were you?
that. Yeah, I was there at one point. We were playing Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and I was like, "This is fascinating because it's trying to be like a mystery game, but it's kind of supposed to be an action game, so I don't really know exactly what it's supposed to be."
Did you ever play that one, Nate?
No.
DC?
No, I love the movie, but I never had the video game. So.
It was terrible.
Yeah.
It was great, but it was terrible.
Yeah.
No, it's probably one of my favorite movies.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really watch a lot of movies, to be fair. But yeah, no, great movie. It's just so ridiculously just.
And so you
Over
had to
the
get
top.
the game.
I didn't buy any of these things,
Okay.
being a wee lad in the 80s and early 90s.
Right. That is one of those things, though, that you would start to see as those video game tie-ins before it, like, became... Like, I feel like it happens a little bit now, but most of the time when you see video game tie-ins for brands, everybody's, like, aware of everything in it ahead of time, so they kind of have to try to at least make an effort. But there was a time back when they, like, would pump out the game as quickly as possible after the movie dropped, which is how you end up with E.T.
And landfills full of ET.
And landfills, because that really was like one designer at Atari that was like had like 90 days or something to make this game so it could come out for the holiday season, and it's like, I don't know, I'll just put this in order to do it, and everyone bought it because it's like, yay. No, I can't do it anymore.
You could. Are we still talking about cartoons or just retro stuff in general? Because I could also then ask DC. He does streaming. Do you ever enjoy streaming more retro style games or playing them in general?
There are a few I'll play. I don't usually stream them. The original Legend of Zelda is my favorite game one of my favorite games of all time. And so a couple of years ago, it was like my birthday week, and I'm gonna play my favorite game. This is what I'm doing this week of my birthday. So
Yeah.
But usually I try to play more current games. There are some retro games I'll play off stream. Try get one of those Capcom collections.
Oh yeah. Have you tried any of like the more modern games that are reminiscent of like Legend of Zelda? I've seen a couple around that are like.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I enjoy adventure games like that.
Sure. Yeah.
I know there's a pretty big resurgence. I guess it's not a resurgence. Just like retro aesthetic games, pixel graphics, and that kind of style. I'm not really a big fan of them typically. I'm not totally sure why. Like, I grew up with these types of games, but like the games we have now that can do so much more are more interesting to me. So I don't know how either of you feel about like retro inspired games.
There's only a few pixel art games I like. You gotta be doing something neat with the pixel art for me to be engaged with it. A lot of games I see, I'm like, kind of a similar feeling to you, Alex, is that if it looks more like a Saturday morning cartoon than a 8-bit thing, I'm more into it. But so for a pixel art game to grab me, it has to do something neat. Like one of my favorite games now is Vampire Survivors. That's all pixel art, and that's fantastic.
And addicting.
And
terribly.
The Record of Lodoss Wars game that came out a couple of years back. That was one of my favorite. I also really like Record of Lodoss Wars, which is an anime based on a D&D game this person played.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, because in Japan, you had this thing where people would write down, almost like a precursor to actual plays, that they would write down everything that happened in their campaign as a story, and those would get published. And so Record of Lodoss Wars was based on the creator's D&D game, where he wrote these, and these stories were published, and then there's a manga and an anime to it and everything, and so it became quite popular.
I feel like there's a lot of transfer over. Like me, personally, just to answer your question, Alex, I don't mind pixel graphics, because like Stardew Valley, Vampire Survivors, like there's a lot of the pixel art games that I do play quite a bit. Although I really do appreciate, and I really loved it, seeing more of like the hand-drawn art style, where it looks like an actual, almost like Don Bluth or something, where they really try to make those sort of things. Something like Spiritfarer that has that kind of graphic art style, just beautiful, and I like I like some of the cell shaded stuff, because like Borderlands is a big one for me. The stylized stuff that isn't
I think
realistic.
Style has a big play on those for me. Similar to, again, what DC was saying. You have to be doing something interesting or special, I think, for like some of those retro styled games. Or even I see games that are like PS2 aesthetic, and I'm like, I lived through the PS2 era. I don't want to look at PS2 aesthetics unless you're doing something fun. I don't need fixed camera angle games unless it's a game I played that was fixed camera angle back in the time. Like if I go back and play Soul Reaver or Legacy of Kain, I can deal with it. But like, I think Crow Country was a big one that came out that had the PS2 aesthetic and the fixed camera angles, and I saw people playing it or watched a video on it. It was like, oh, I'm like, I couldn't, I can't. I'm like, interesting, but it's just no.
Yeah, not
tech.
Yeah.
It's like the original Alone in the Dark was that. It's very reminiscent of like that, like a Silent Hill maybe kind of deal, or Resident Evil kind of deal. But it's like I can't I can't play something
Right.
that feels like it's from 1996.
Right. Especially if it plays that way.
Yeah.
I've had those experiences too. It's like, no, there's a reason why we updated the control schemes so that I can actually move the character with an analog stick instead of moving it with... Yeah, there's a reason. Sorry, Gothic. Anyway, but what I wanted to wrap around back to is how all of these things actually have influenced your live plays and like live streams and the content that you want to create, because I can tell that it's kind of influential on you, DC. So do you think about any of those elements, and do you try to incorporate any of those into making an actual play or a live stream?
Getting into big creative process here, I'm sure they do, though I may not necessarily think of it at the time as related to something, and later on go, oh yeah, that I'm basing this on something I saw Bugs Bunny do, or Animaniacs.
Sure.
Or just sort of that silliness, especially for the charity streams. I kind of want that kind of chaos, that same feeling of just weird things that happen, and yet you're making it fun, and somehow you're telling a story at the same time.
Yeah.
And just drawing on that bizarre things, especially early animation by I lost the name. Guy who did Betty Boop and Popeye.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
I don't remember who it is, but
The Fleischer brothers, like Max
Oh.
Fleischer.
Max Fisher.
And so just kind of how bizarre those things were, where everything was alive and bouncy. You know, the hat rack would help open the door and it would just be bouncing there happily.
Yeah.
And so things like that. And then you can evolve that into sort of the kind of strangeness and weirdness in something like more recently Over the Garden Wall,
Yeah.
which is fantastic if you haven't checked it out. And where you get this sense of this chaos, but it's the structure of the chaos and the weirdness and kind of creepiness that goes in. And anytime I can drag into those feelings, I'm sure it's the influence from one of those things that I've seen.
I get the impression that, like, pretty much everything from our childhood that we absorbed from games and television and movies informs a lot of what we like, which might be the reason why there's always like a retro movement like of about like 30 years back.
well, yeah, it's nostalgia as part of it. I think for what DC is saying, some of that like cartoons and stuff definitely has inherent chaos to it because of the unpredictability of what you can get away with in cartoons.
Mm-hmm.
So for adding some of that zaniness, it's like, what happens when I do this? Oh, well, an anvil falls on your head. I don't think that's something you might do in a game, but like just the unpredictability and just the absurdity of some of the things you can do,
Sure.
definitely plays into like stuff you might have seen in like Bugs Bunny cartoon.
I know we're a little short on time, but I did want to ask one little thought experiment before we wrap up, though. If we had to take a character from one of those cartoons, who would really make a great like RPG character to play?
I have one if everyone else is still thinking.
Yes.
All right.
You can ask the question.
Mandy from the Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy.
Oh my god. Why?
Oh, because she enslaved the Grim Reaper by being a sassy little bitch.
This feels like a very Alex character, actually.
And so, it just happens to be that she's kind of ruthless
Mhm.
and kind of really good at what she does, and was able to, like, again, enslave the Grim Reaper into just being her servant for life. Yeah, kind of a character that would figure out a way to ruin everything.
Mine is a cheat because it's one I've actually done, and it's a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. Because I did indeed have a campaign where I literally just made a turtle that was a giant glowing turtle monk and shadow monk, and it was based on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles implicitly, and I basically made the story around Rembrandt as one of these turtles, and it was a lot of fun. But they kind of lend themselves to like a combat oriented system like D&D anyway, so it was very easy to do. to make that work.
The one that came to me immediately was He-Man, because you get to be a barbarian, you get to have a big sword, muscles, you wear this weird grass skirt thing,
Perfect.
And a chest
for
harness.
pants,
Mhm.
and you're a prince.
Yeah, you get that
and-
haircut.
You get that haircut. You get to
You get to-
do weird strength-based things that don't make sense.
You get
Yeah.
a cat.
You get a cat, maybe.
Maybe you get
I
a
have a cat.
and
It
you
just
have-
meowed over here.
Meow.
Mhm. The
And you
cat's
get to
in
do that
favor.
weird,
Yeah.
that weird meme thing where you're going.
Yeah, exactly. That's the opening to every episode. Yeah, it's
I-
just-
I do doubt I could do a He-Man thing for a whole campaign, though. But-
yeah. You'd have to get all the Masters of the Universe involved in that in order to make
Yeah.
the campaign. Yeah. Somebody's got to play Skeletor, though.
Someone needs to be Stinkor
Yeah.
and Leech and Stratos. You need a
I don't,
Stratos.
remember, I don't remember all the characters in He-Man.
It's probably for the best. I don't know if
Probably
even
for
the
the
people
best.
in He-Man remember all the characters. So what I'm really hearing is that we need like an 80s era cartoon inspired D&D campaign.
Oh,
We need
God.
to bring in characters.
Indeed.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's the plot? Oh, you need to kill Skeletor and and Rita Repulsa.
At the same time, make
All
my
of your-
Skeletor grow. Now it's giant Skeletor.
All of the evil kids cartoons characters have banded together for a league of evil, and you need to stop them.
I have another idea too. It's the Truman Show, but with cartoon characters, and they realize that they're in a cartoon, and they're trying to escape from the cartoon now.
I mean, that's just Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but tuned down. But also, could be a great plot for a thing. You realize you're in a cartoon,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can get away with all the zany things you want to do. Basically, if a character wants to do a thing, they roll for it, and if they roll good enough, it can happen. I pull an anvil out of my purse. Roll for it.
Yeah.
Bing!
You-
Anvil.
Modify the wild magic table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right like that. Somebody get on that. If you've done this, you let us know in the comments down below. And also the question I asked at the end of this is, if you can think of a character from like your classic cartoons that you used to watch that you'd like to play as a character in an RPG, you let us know in the comments down below. And obvious and why is it Roger Rabbit?
Because he's got a hot wife.
Gonna
She's with him because he's funny.
Personality is everything, folks. Anyway, yeah, so just let us know in the comments down below who you would like to play in an RPG. We will not actually do that campaign, just in case you're
You don't know
wondering.
that.
There are no current plans to do that campaign.